The other day, we talked about how Marjorie Taylor Greene floated the idea of going to war with Mexico. Okay, so to be clear, what she means is, hey, these drug cartels are like basically terrorist armies, and so we need to invade Mexico without their consent, without their agreement, and just start bombing the crap out of the drug cartels. So at the time, you hear that and you're like, nah, that seems sort of like a goofy fringe idea. And now, to be fair, Trump has brought that up himself. He's talked about we need the death penalty for drug dealers. Okay, that's absolutely psycho. And by the way, that'd be massively unconstitutional here in the U.S. And by the way, you freed Alice Johnson, who was this sweet grandma who was, arrested on drug dealing. She got caught up in some scam and dealt some drugs, and then you ended up freeing her thanks to Kim Kardashian. So anyway, are you saying Alice Johnson should be put to death? Psycho. Well, you had Trump saying it. You had Marjorie Taylor Greene saying it. But, like the Romney types, they're like, I'm the respectable Republican, bro. Those types, of course they didn't agree to it. And they never said anything to that effect. Well, here's Dan Crenshaw. Dan Crenshaw, who is a representative of, like, that wing of the Republican Party, like the Mitt Romney types, the we're actually more serious types. And he goes on Fox News, and he's gonna double down on this idea. And they're talking about a bill, like we're actually gonna draft a bill to go to war with Mexico. Yeah, real finger on the pulse type stuff you got going on here. This is what Americans wanted when they elected you to the House. For, Republicans have the majority now. They're like, God, we got all these problems. I can't pay my medical bills. I got credit card debt out the wazoo. My student loan bills are crazy. My rent is way too high. Let's elect a Republican so they can invade Mexico. Just totally cuckoo stuff. Anyway, listen to what he says.
He has his own ideas and worries about what's happening at the border. This one might need to involve the U.S. military. Congressman, good to see you. Maybe explain what's got you very, very concerned.
Well, look, we recently introduced AUMF, an authorized use of military force against the cartels and any other organizations that traffic fentanyl specifically.
He proposed an authorization for use of military force that allows Biden to order U.S. forces into Mexico to go after drug cartels, even if Mexico says no. And you would think that you're so concerned about fentanyl that you can't even get the name right. Everybody says fentanyl, fentanyl, fentanyl. It's fentanyl. N-Y-L. N-Y-L. Fentanyl. Fentanyl. Not no. Not no. It's not N-O-L. You care so deeply about it, you don't even know how to say the drug. You don't know how to say the drug. And you want to declare war? You want to declare war over fentanyl? Go after Big Pharma. Crack down on Big Pharma. Don't invade Mexico. Oh my God, I'm going to have an aneurysm live on air, y'all. I'm going to have an aneurysm live on air. More.
So why now and why not years ago? These Mexican drug cartels have been around for a while. But the difference now is fentanyl. This is not a drug problem. This is not a war on drug problem. This is a poisoning problem. And they're killing about 80,000 Americans a year. And the Mexican government does very little to thwart this.
When did we get the fentanyl problem? When did it become a huge issue? I'll tell you when. When the government decided we're going to crack down on pain pills. So now, listen, don't get it twisted. It's not like we didn't have a problem with the pain pills. We did. We did. In fact, we had about 30,000 deaths a year from pill overdoses. Well, when they cracked down on the pain pills, made them much harder to get, what happened? A lot of the pain patients and a lot of the addicts said, I got to go to the black market to get my fix. And they went and they would get heroin. And sometimes the heroin was cut with fentanyl, and then you die. So now what are the overdoses at? 100,000 a year. I saw one, I think it was 110,000. So we went from 30,000 to 100,000 or 110,000. So look, I'm not a genius or anything, but if you want to get them back down to 30,000, I know how to do it. Because empirically, we've proven we can do that. You have to not do that massive pain pill crackdown. And look, I'm not saying they didn't crack down on the pills with good intent. Of course they did. They thought, we got to reduce the number of these pain pills in circulation because people are overdosing on them. But your solution was worse than the problem. Literally, it is mathematically so. And so would he ever come out and say, no, he wouldn't. Would he ever come out and say that? No, he would never say that. We have other studies. In fact, one we're going to cover later on in this show that, hey, when you have legal weed, addiction goes down. Addiction to other kinds of drugs go down. So you want legal weed everywhere, Dan Crenshaw? Maybe he is pro-legalization of weed. I don't know. You guys tell me. Is he pro-legal weed? I don't know. But pro-legalization of weed, okay, that's one thing you could do. Roll back the stringent regulation against the pain pills. Get rid of prohibition and have, good regulations in place. And look, keep it real. You know what else has been proven to save lives? Safe injection sites. Look, you might not like that, right? It may be a politically incorrect truth, but it is a truth. Anywhere they've done the safe injection sites, you know what happens? You have health experts there, so if there's a problem, if there's an OD, if something's tainted, either you don't take the thing if it's tainted, or if you have something and there's a problem and you OD, they help you right there. So nobody dies. And also it stops the spread of disease because it's clean needles and things of that nature. Now, they would say, well, that incentivizes drug use. It saves lives. So if you really cared about saving lives, legalize weed, do the safe injection sites, and roll back the onerous crackdown on the pills. Are you going to do that? You're not going to do that. What's your answer? War. Let's go to war.
And I think there should be bipartisan efforts in Congress to pass an authorized use of military force to deal with them. If anything, that simply gives our president more leverage when trying to get the Mexican government to do its job. And that's its job on thwarting immigration, which the cartels also control, and thwarting fentanyl coming north across our border and killing American citizens. These.
I love his line of argument because it's like, we should try to do a war on drugs. We should do maybe a drug war. Yeah, what a novel idea. We haven't tried that for decades. By the way, you know how many deaths there are as a result of the drug war? Not many people know this fact. And actually, this isn't even a full count because this is just from 2007 to 2018. 115,000 people are dead because of the drug war. 115,000. And again, that's not even a total count. And he looks at that and he goes, we should do more of that? Maybe escalate it? Yeah, I'm sure that's going to work really, really well. In the same way that when we made alcohol illegal and did prohibition and cracked down on that, alcohol disappeared, bro. It was gone forever. Nobody ever had a drink again. Hooray for the war on alcohol. Let me know how that worked out. Oh, that's right. The opposite happened.
People are a lot more like ISIS than they are the mafia. You recently saw a war in the state of Sinaloa after the Mexican government arrested El Chapo's son. These cartels can actually battle close air support. They're battling government helicopters. This looked a lot like Mogadishu. It looked a lot more like Mogadishu than it does your typical organized crime battle. These people are well equipped. They set up forward operating bases that are well armed right near our border, and they're extremely dangerous. They're some of the most capable, most well-funded, most dangerous organizations on the planet. And
so let me tell you how he just massively undermined his own argument. Okay, everybody was, oh my God, El Chapo, the Sinaloa cartel, whichever cartel he was the head of. Oh my God, so dangerous. We got to go after him, bro. And they did this strategy called the decapitation strategy. In other words, you take out the head, that's El Chapo, and then the rest of the organization falls apart, withers, and dies. What actually happened was the exact opposite. So you got rid of El Chapo. Well, hold on. He had the monopoly on violence. He was the leader. He kept everybody in check. So you got rid of El Chapo, and then you had drug gang wars in the middle of the streets because there was fighting over determining who would be the next leader. Wow. So the thing that they thought would happen, they couldn't have been more wrong. They were dead wrong. And instead of learning from that and saying, hey, maybe just an outright war approach is not the best way here, he's doubling down on it. He's tripling down on it. He's like, let's just take out more of the leaders. Okay, but then you're just going to have a power vacuum and more fighting to determine the next leader. You have to take a different approach. Legalize, tax, and regulate drugs. Put the cartels out of business. If you're saying they're strong enough to compete with government forces, then for you to say, let's go wage a war against them, you're saying we want to wage war against a competent opponent. Well, in a situation like that, it's going to lead to a stalemate. And by the way, it'll probably massively increase the number of civilian deaths. So he couldn't be more incorrect. He couldn't be more wrong. And they're floating this on Fox News. the number one so-called news network on the planet. They're like, we already got a war in Iraq going on. You know, thankfully we just pulled out of Afghanistan, but we got the shadow war in Africa. Let's add another war. Let's go to, we're missing a war or two. So let's add one in Mexico. Unbelievable.
And they're right there. And Mexico is at risk of becoming a failed state. We have to work together with their government to deal with this.
I'm curious. I wonder what Mexico would think of American troops at the border doing this cartel line of attack. They might interpret it differently. What kind of reaction have you gotten?
Well, look, we've always had trouble getting the Mexican government to work with us. And you compare it to a country like Colombia. So we've been dealing with Colombia for decades. America was very...
All right, you guys get the gist of it. Look, what I want to let Dan Crenshaw know is this simple fact. Now, I don't know if he knows this or not. If I'm being kind to him, it's like, okay, maybe he doesn't know this, because he's asking for more of the war on drugs. What was the war on drugs actually about? Well, this was a very famous thing that came out a few years back, okay? Nixon had a domestic policy chief by the name of John Ehrlichman. This is a top guy in the Nixon administration. He was honest with the media at one point. And he said in 1994, he told the media the following. You ready for this? Quote, the Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. So, in other words, all of this, like the highfalutin story of like, bro, we just want to like protect the kids and protect the population because drugs like ruin your mind and ruin your life. And so us, the well-meaning people in the government are just here to save you from the pitfalls of life. They'll take you down the wrong path. By the way, if that was true, if you really want to help people, why wouldn't it be a war on drugs in that you mandate people go to rehab? You assign them a therapist or a psychologist. You help them get a job. Why wouldn't you do that? So they say, we're here to help. And then it's like, lock them in a cage. Lock them up, throw away the key, ruin their life, make sure they can't get a job afterwards. Because it wasn't really about that. The war on drugs was about this. Oh, it turns out our political opponents are the hippies, the anti-war left, and black people. Well, I see a lot of marijuana use. I see a lot of drug use in some of these communities. What if we just use this as the excuse to crack down on them politically? Basically give us political prisoners. And this is why the war on drugs is deeply authoritarian. We had slavery, we had Jim Crow, we had redlining, and now we have the drug war. And it's to go after poor white people and black people and minority communities. And it was on purpose. It was on purpose that they did this. And so even the idea was to help you, bro, to keep you safe and stuff, bro. Nonsense. It was never about that. And now we have 115,000 plus dead bodies in a literal war on drugs in Mexico. We have millions of people locked up all around this country with their life ruined as a result of these draconian laws. And instead of addressing this by fixing the problems, by legalizing, taxing, and regulating drugs, by putting the cartels out of business, by doing safe injection sites, by leaning into rehab and help for people, instead of doing any of that, he says, let's invade Mexico. Let's do a literal war with our neighbor. People who, by the way, we are massive trading partners with. You want to invade them? This is psycho stuff, man. All the problems we have in this country. 85 million Americans uninsured or underinsured when it comes to healthcare. He's like, just war with Mexico? Does that sound good, bro? Does that sound good? Amazing. Incredible stuff. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.